Hey guys, today we're going to talk about nursing school orientation. One thing I really liked that my school did was send a bunch of information prior to orientation. We received an RSVP, so we were supposed to RSVP with not only our information, but anyone who would be attending in addition to us. So family members, friends, anyone who was coming with you. We received a rundown of what orientation was going to look like, which was really helpful, as well as a school supply list, a medical requirement list that had to be completed prior to orientation, and a few other documents such as our IDs, parking passes, any resources that they recommended for students to have prior to starting school. So just a lot of information. Granted, it was really nice to have, but it was also very overwhelming. I'm someone who gets overwhelmed very easily, so I was definitely overwhelmed when I got this. The first thing on the list that I tackled was definitely the medical requirements. For nursing school, you have a set of requirements that you have to complete before. A lot of schools do it before clinicals. My school does it before you even start classes. It is just a list of requirements that allow you to work in a hospital. Our requirements included 2 TB tests that had to be read more than a week apart and within the same year. All your vaccinations, so the recommended vaccinations are MMR, hepatitis B, tetanus, etc. All the ones you get as a child, as well as a few that you have to update every certain amount of years. Like tetanus is, I think, every 10 years. The most annoying part was definitely the TB tests, because my insurance was able to cover most of my vaccinations or updating my vaccinations. However, for the TB tests, they were not covered because they were so close together, and they weren't a required test. They were more of an elective. So that was an extra cost that I didn't foresee that I had to undertake. So definitely just being aware of those costs and like knowing that everything's going to cost a lot, just keep that in mind, definitely. So we had to complete all those prior to orientation, so I had all those done. They took about a month to complete, I would say. Not from a timing standpoint. Technically, you could get them all done at once, but just from a financial standpoint and a standpoint for work. I don't have every single day off, and I can't get vaccinations all in one day necessarily, because sometimes they go in the same location, sometimes it's recommended to get them at separate times. So I definitely had to take into account that, hey, I can only get 1 or 2 vaccinations each day, what days do I have off, that kind of thing. So it was more of a personal standpoint that they took a lot longer. However, I was able to complete them on time, and it was not that expensive, but more expensive than I had anticipated. I think I spent a total of $100 getting all my vaccinations, everything up to date. My school did cover the drug screen, and they also covered the background check. So they paid for those. Everything else I had to pay for myself. They were all a personal expense. So once I had all that complete, I was ready to go to orientation. Our orientation was 2 separate days. Granted, they were half days, so they were not a full 9 to 5 kind of thing. They were more like 9 to 12. The first day, I showed up. I did not have someone come with me. I would have liked to have someone there. I think a lot of that orientation was geared towards parents. So it would have been nice to have a parent with me, but my parents were working, so unfortunately I had to go by myself. So I attended orientation the first day by myself. A lot of this was very much not necessary. I'd say it was a lot of school administrators going through like, this is what's great about our school. This is why we're a great school. You're going to have a job. You're going to have this. You're going to have that. which is great, but I know why I chose the school I'm going to. It's a nationally ranked school, and they have great NCLEX rates for those who pass, and they have great job placement rates. So I know why I chose my school. I don't need to go to an orientation for 5 hours and listen to someone explain why I chose my school. So day one was a little frustrating because it felt like not necessarily a waste of time, but it felt like I was hearing information I already knew. The only thing about orientation on the first day that I really appreciated was the rundown by public safety. This was an overview of what parking was going to look like on campus, what our IDs were going to look like, and how we should wear them, as well as personal safety alarms. The shocking thing was definitely the personal safety alarms. I wasn't someone who was expecting to have to wear an alarm when at clinicals. I work with nurses closely, but I work in a more suburban area, so we don't have personal alarms on site. We don't worry about that kind of thing. But my clinicals will actually be taking place in the city, which is somewhere you have to be more aware of your surroundings and also the clientele that you're treating. Patients are great. We're here to help them, but also we have to worry about ourselves a lot, and that's something that I didn't necessarily think of. So personal alarms are something that public safety covered. We actually have to wear them at clinicals because we're in the city, and during clinicals, those personal alarms are something that if you are in a situation that you don't feel comfortable in, you can tap once. Then all your nursing staff are alerted. Hey, I don't feel comfortable. If you press it and hold down, it actually sends your location to public safety, and they are there within minutes. They are there, and they are armed to help you if that's necessary, which is something that it's scary because as a nurse, you don't necessarily think, oh my God, I'm gonna have to worry about my personal safety, because you're worrying about patients. We're those people that put ourselves last. We put our patients before ourselves. So thinking about that it's scary. It definitely is. You're thinking, oh my God, how many situations have they had that have led to them having to have personal alarms? But it's also really comforting because you're like, hey, if something does happen, I have that resource. So that was the only beneficial thing about day one that I really was pleased about. The rest, I felt like, hey, I don't really need to be here. This is kind of a waste. I played on my phone a lot, which is horrible to say because so many people put their time and efforts into making day one of orientation happen. So I feel bad in that aspect, but I don't feel bad in my personal opinion that, hey, this could have been one day, we could have consolidated, because not all of us have that free time to attend events like this. I certainly don't. It took a lot for me to make sure I was off of work those 2 days. So definitely day one was something I could have skipped. However, day two I found really beneficial. Our day two at orientation was student oriented. This was definitely geared towards learning the ropes of what school is going to be like for us, but also learning about the experiences of other students and how that could contribute to our education. So the first thing we did was meet people within our program. So I'm in the accelerated program, which is a program that's 12 months, or a little less than 12 months actually. I think it's about 11 actually. And we were able to kind of socialize, sit together, get a rundown of our program by a program director, and we were able to play games, kind of learn about each other, all that jazz. And then we went to a lunch. These lunches, we were sat with a peer mentor who had emailed us earlier in the week with her name and information. We sat with our peer mentor, and there was about 6 to 8 students at each table who were associated with that peer mentor. So we ate lunch with our peer mentor, kind of building contacts. We socialized with one another. We got each other's names, numbers, so we could build on that 6 to 8 people group as someone who we can work together with. My peer mentor, personally, I don't necessarily think she should be a peer mentor. I know that's horrible to say, but a lot of the advice I was getting from her was just not great. She's someone who, this is her second nursing program, so she either failed out or just left a previous nursing program. So that was kind of hard to relate to because I'm someone who's so excited about my nursing program. I don't plan on entering a second one. So that was already kind of hard to relate to. And then she was also someone who says, I never take notes in class. I never bought the books. I never did this. I never did that. Granted, it's always great to hear about an individual's experience because you can learn what will and will not work for students. But I personally am someone who puts in a huge amount of effort when it comes to school. And I think I would relate better to a mentor who also put in that huge amount of effort. So that was a little frustrating. However, I did like meeting people within a small group setting because I was able to speak to some students that I think I will relate to in the future and will be able to network with at least. We then entered a student board and they spoke about what the first semester was going to look like. They gave recommendations based on each teacher in class, which I really, really thought was beneficial. This was something that, had I missed, I would have been very upset about because they gave such specific recommendations. They were able to say, hey, you need to record this class because it's going to be so much content. Hey, this teacher kind of goes on tangents. So make sure you're listening when it's important, but when it's not, hey, no big deal. You probably need the book for this class, but for this other class, you don't need the book. So it was just so many specific recommendations that I found it so beneficial. This was by far my favorite part of orientation. It was definitely the most easy to understand and the most important by far. So had orientation just been more student-based, students speaking on their own experiences, I think it would have been much more beneficial. So we got all that done. And then afterwards they had the uniform agency in a separate room where they had fittings for uniforms. This was mayhem. Mayhem, I tell you. Thankfully, I had already ordered my uniforms through the uniform store beforehand. I went to this event just to make sure my white coat, that I was ordering the right size for clinicals, because we do have to wear a white coat to clinicals as well as our white coat ceremony for when we take an oath into nursing. So there were so many people there because they were not only fitting scrubs and white coats, but they were selling them. So it was just absolute chaos. Everyone was trying to pack into the smallest room possible. Everyone was trying to buy stuff. It was nice because I got to see my sizing and make sure everything fit correctly, but I could not imagine spending more than 2 minutes in there. I literally tried on my white coat and left. I definitely recommend ordering your uniform and white coat ahead of time if you can, or rushing there. I literally ran there. Run there, try it on really fast, and then order it online. Don't spend time buying stuff there. Not only do I think they hike the charge, but I think that there's just so many people, you cannot compete for that time of those vendors. And then I was able to leave, which, because orientation was just so much, it was nice to leave. I definitely wish I could have brought a support system with me because I think it would have been a little bit more of a calming and grounding experience to have someone with me who's not a student or directly involved in the school. It was stressful to be there by myself. It really was. It was just a lot to undergo as one person and to not have anyone to talk to about. But we got a lot of information that was helpful. We got our school schedules. We got uniform recommendations. We got student recommendations. We got all this information. So while it was stressful, it was a really beneficial experience. So definitely recommend going in person to your school orientation and asking those questions that are important to you, because asking those questions could really further your career. And I hope this was helpful. I mean, I'm making these mostly for me, but I hope these are helpful for you as well. So thank you for watching, and subscribe. Tune back in later. I'll talk to you guys later about more nursing crap. Bye.